The Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, received them at the airport. The Danish Prime Minister inspected an inter-services guard of honor.
Excellency, the Prime Minister of Denmark.
हमें बड़ी प्रसन्नता है आपकी तशरीफ आवरी पर हमारे देश में आकर हमारे बड़े मुल्कों से तल्लुका भी गए और तीसरी बार आपका बड़ा एहसास है और डेनमार्क ने भारत की स्वतंत्रता सहायता की है उसके लिए भी हम आपके बहुत आभारी हैं।
Cordial welcome, Your Excellency, to our country.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you very much.
Madam, how nice of you to come. Please.
Thank you very much.
And all Europe is in grip of a very...
Especially the northern part.
2 days.
That takes a lot of oil to keep the house.
And I think that will
Started. The old fortress, the Taj Mahal, and other beautiful
Is one
places.
thing which you would like to export, we want foreign exchange.
Yes.
It's such a beautiful thing. We can only give them replica.
As I commented today, you could never get a project like the Taj Mahal through the financing. Then we had a lunch. Many businessmen invited.
Yes.
There we discussed industrial and commercial problems and established an Indo-Danish Chamber of Commerce. They started this morning, yes. And then they signed an agreement between your Chamber of Industry and Commerce and ours. And everybody was happy about that. So that was a good start. Certainly was. Yes.
Thank you.
Then we've relaxed a bit this afternoon, so everything is perfect.
With his official engagements, his wife visited the National Museum.
All versions will be made here, and here of course have these famous destroyed in the sense of recreation, and this is from the Pallava period. Well, you see, these are the every. You have,
Madam, please.
So, how we will work.
Nej, det er, hvad du vil kritisere.
Yeah, so do it.
Ja, jeg holder, du graver.
Let's move to other side.
Which kind of
It's a flower. It's a flower.
this what it is?
Golden here. Yes, scented.
We are overwhelmed with the kindness and hospitality shown to us by the government, and of course we are receiving so many impressions during this week's stay. We are trying to get an impression of India's rich past, its culture, its traditions, but certainly also of what Prime Minister Gandhi in his speech last night called the pioneering endeavor to modernize and develop the country while preserving traditional values and democratic foundations. We are well aware, and this is important, that we are visiting this week the world's largest democracy. And this really is something. I had the opportunity then to spend almost 4 days with Mrs. Gandhi in Denmark. I certainly do hope that we shall see Mr. Gandhi, your Prime Minister, today in Denmark before long. Contacts of this level are, first of all, a means of demonstrating to the public in both countries the warm relations between us and an opportunity to exchange views on international politics. I'm aware that as journalists you have come here to ask questions rather than listen to speeches, so as well as your foreign minister and your minister for commerce, and I have discussed many interesting items of common concern to both countries, but I think I should leave it to you. Good.
Friends, may I say that when I will identify those of you who want to ask questions, please identify yourself by name, the news organization you represent, and may I...
Ram of Indian Express, are you concluding any agreement or accord during this visit, either in terms of trade or otherwise?
No, not as such, but the trade delegation, which is accompanying me on this trip, did yesterday sign an agreement with their Indian counterpart. And the idea is that we now have established official, formal contacts between the organizations of industrial life in the two countries. And this, no doubt, will facilitate that business people individually, firms, enterprises individually, better can get support from their organizations, and there will be a regularly exchange of information between the two organizations and its membership, so that there is a better general background.
Yes.
JP Bhatnagar, Mussalman Madras. Sir, do you have any plan of exchanging your country's businessmen to India and Indian journalists and businessmen to your country for exchange of views?
We would like that to get enlarged, that sort of cooperation. But as a matter of fact, it is already operated on a certain scale. There are a number of Danish firms who work closely together with government agencies and above all private enterprises in your country. And many Danes over the last few years have come to India, established contacts. Many Indians have gone to Denmark, and also groups now and then, primarily of rather young people, to study our methods, technical methods, etc., in various specialized fields. And I think this is helpful. What we are striving for when it comes to industry and trade is not just the old game, which all of us know, exchange of goods, and only that. I think we must be aware that the method in future is more than that. Danish population. There are many reasons for that. One is that our sources of information are very, very well developed. Newspapers, television, there's a television set in each and any home, and Danish television focuses very much on what happens in faraway places. We feel that this is the modern times fabulous offer to people, that you can get what happens foremost via television into your home and study it. And there's a very, very high degree of knowledge in Denmark, and an interest, a warm interest around everything what happens in Asia, not least in India. And as I touched before, an admiration that you have been able to live your daily life based on democracy. As obviously you have a number of difficulties which we do not have anymore. We had it maybe 50, maybe 70 years ago, but of course in many directions, should one think it was easier to perform democracy in a richer society. So there is great admiration for the endeavors you undertake. And I think it is fair to say that the ordinary Dane follows your development. And this also is the background for not only Danish politicians, but also Danish enterprises to move into your area and try to take up contact. This is not just inspired by a business point, but is inspired by a general interest in the population.
Thank you. Yes.
Your Excellencies with the Prime Minister and other people, and especially in the areas of high technology, whether you discussed transfer of technology or collaborations between the two countries or collaborations for the third countries?
Yes. With regard to my political talks, primarily with the Prime Minister, and we shall meet again tonight on a more private basis, we spent much time on items like peace, security, disarmament. The major part of the conversation yesterday with the Prime Minister was devoted to such questions, not least disarmament efforts. And as I see it, the question of halting the arms race and narrowing the gap between rich and poor nations should be regarded as the two main challenges facing the international community today. And this we discussed. And I think it is fair to say that in many, many, many areas do we share points and positions, although we are in many ways in very different positions, geographically, etc., etc. India as a member of the non-aligned group, which is very important. Denmark as a member of the EC, and as a member of the NATO Defense Organization. I think we share the basic point that regardless of your geographical or basic political situation, it is important that all of us work to secure that the negotiations over weapon reducements will come out successfully. This is a matter of nuclear weapon, but it certainly also is a matter of conventional weapon. You might say that the paradox in my part of the world is that after even 110 local or regional wars, and some are going on, in nuclear as well as reducements in conventional weapon. This is important. We discussed items like this. Bilateral, we do not ultimately corresponding 40 million US dollars. We operate with water supply and sanitation, where Denmark is with fishery. Such areas have established close contact, and we are working on projects including modern will become a priority sector because we are both very interested. So
only yesterday the Soviet Union has named a new and a senior delegate to the Disarmament Conference. In the context of the collapse of the Reykjavik and Geneva summit, you as a member of the NATO, how do you look upon prospects of immediate, durable, viable détente, particularly the surge which has been virtually stalemated between the Soviet Union and the United States? And secondly, in this context, in your own country, there's a groundswell of growing popular indignation and opposition to Star Wars and your association with Ronald Reagan's regime. How do you look upon this, Your Excellency?
our valuation is that Reykjavik, although not successful, will prove, but it is my feeling that yet a certain positive climate was established. And I think it is the role to be played by all others of us to try to inspire the two superpowers to take up detailed negotiations again as soon as ever possible. Realistic negotiations. Maybe they tried, I do not know, to cover too much in a too ambitious way in the short Reykjavik session. Anyhow, it is important as soon as possible to reach some results. Those results must not necessarily be the 100% ideal solution. When do we ever reach that? Hopefully one day. But if you can't get 100% success, let's try to have a 50% one to start by and then go on. So I'm in favor of trying to obtain results in, well, almost any area where we negotiate at the time being. Strategic, intermediate, conventional, what have you. We have it all going on.
And they altogether picture a distorted image of India in your country. And the real image of India, which is normally known to the people, that's why I asked that how many percentage of people really they know about India. What actually the, idea behind that about half a dozen people of Indian origin who are opposed to the, I should say that they are against,
Why don't you spell it out clearly instead of being polite?
yeah. There are half a dozen extremists of Indian origin. They live there. And they try to just paint altogether a distorted image of India in your country. And the television and the radio, they interview them, and the people, they have really created a distorted image amongst the Danes. Image of India being given by the half a dozen extremists, and they are being given due importance by the Danish television and radio.
As you know, Denmark is characterized by the fact that we have total freedom of press. This wonderful gift. But this is serious, and that also means that the Danish government cannot and should not and will not in any way interfere in editorial policies of newspapers, of radio stations, of television. I have not seen or heard what you try to refer to. Obviously, Danish media now and then try to report over interior problems in this country. This is, well, of course they should. And I would not be surprised if it were a fact that now and then many various points are exposed. I don't know whether this has taken place, but I wouldn't be surprised if that had happened once or twice.
Thank you. I think
does Denmark entertain some of the terrorists from India? If so, how many are there, and how do you deal with them?
How do we deal with
terrorists who take shelter in our country?
Yes. Our policy is to receive refugees who are true refugees, which means that they have had to fly because of their personal political insecurity or something like that. You can't define this terribly precisely, but we feel that it is a natural thing to try out of humanitarian philosophy to give a certain number. There's a limit to how much you can do. Give shelter to people who are genuine refugees for political reasons. As a signatory to the United Nations Refugees
But do you allow them
agreement.
to operate against India? Do you allow them to operate against India?
Do you, sir?
No, those people.
Yes.
Those refugees.
Yes.
Oh, those so-called refugees, do you allow them?
I've never been asked by anyone whether I would allow that or not. It's not a relevant question.
Mr. Foreign Secretary, how nice of you to come.
Foreign Affairs Minister Mr. N.D. Tiwari called on the Danish Prime Minister in New Delhi today.
I'm glad we all had a chance to discuss.
The two leaders are understood to have discussed a number of bilateral and international issues. These include narrowing the gap between the rich and the poor nations and the problem of South Africa.
Last night we discussed the apartheid.
The Danish Prime Minister also visited a project in the capital run with the assistance of Denmark.
Hello.